How's it going, guys? Mike here on the Tressa's Collectibles channel, and today I have a very special deck profile video for you guys. I'm going to be showing you guys my Gravekeeper's deck from Yu-Gi-Oh's Master Duel. Now, I'm very excited about this deck. Gravekeeper is one of my favorite decks. I don't really play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, but back in the day, I did do a bit of dabbling in dueling myself, and my favorite archetype back then was Gravekeepers. So with the release of Master Duel, I thought, hey, a lot of my friends are playing it. Let's see if Gravekeeper got some new support. Maybe if it can still hang around with the big boys. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We have this here deck, myboys.deck, and let's take a look. So for those unaware, this archetype revolves around the Necro Valley card. Necro Valley is this field spell where all of my Gravekeeper monsters get a continuous 500 attack and defense, and then cards in the graveyard cannot be banished, negate any card effect that would move a card in the graveyard to another zone, and then negate any card effect that changes types or attributes in the graveyard. So basically, a lot of decks in Yu-Gi-Oh revolve around effects activating in the graveyard or interacting with the graveyard, and having Necro Valley on the field kind of just says no to all that stuff. So this is the core of our deck. And then, moving to our monsters, we have 3 Gravekeeper's Commander. 3 is the most copies of a card you can play in one deck for Yu-Gi-Oh! Instead of 4 in White Shorts. Oh, Gravekeeper's Commander, you can discard this card to the graveyard, add 1 Necro Valley from your deck to your hand. So basically, we are running 3 extra copies of Necro Valley. If we don't get to draw Necro Valley, we can discard Commander to search our deck for a Necro Valley instead. Next up, we have Gravekeeper's Heretic. He's kind of just a big chunky dude, 1800 attack, 1500 defense, but then his effect is as long as Necro Valley is on the field, then he is unaffected by any other any other card effects. So like your opponent wants to kill him, he can't. They just have to beat over him fair and square through battle. This is our beat stick guy. Once we have our opponent in lockdown with Necro Valley, then we start beating them up with Gravekeeper's Heretic, and they just take 23 and take another 23 next turn, and then just hit them until they're dead. Then for our final monster in our main deck, we have Inspector Border. So this is a pretty unique card in which it cannot actually be normal or special summon if I already control a monster. And then neither player can activate monster effects unless the number of monster effects that player has previously activated that turn is less than the number of monster card types currently on the field. So, if I play Inspector Border, right, my opponent would not be able to activate more than 1 effect. So, they basically don't get to play the game. If they have, because most of the time, a lot of decks in this game, they rely on having monster effects activate to, search their deck or activate to chain into something, and Inspector Border just again says nope to all that stuff. And that's all the monsters we run. We basically just go for a Heretic to beat them up, and then if we don't draw, if we draw Inspector Border, we play Inspector Border and then say pass turn, and then we see how our opponent reacts, and then if they don't scoop, then maybe we scoop. But that's the idea. And going on to our spell and trap cards. You guys will notice in our 40 card deck we do have quite a number of spell and traps. We run Raigeki. If we go second and they set up a big board, if they don't have negates, we can maybe Raigeki their board and then blow it all away. Next we run 1 Terraforming. We can again, this is basically just another copy of Necro Valley. It is only limited to 1, just like the Raigeki is. You guys can see here that the 1, right? So these are limited to 1 copy per deck, so we just run the 1 extra copy. So basically we run 7 copies of Necro Valley here. Next we run 3 Royal Tributes. Now Royal Tribute is the card that really screws over your opponent if they have a monster heavy deck. The Royal Tribute's effect is if you control Necro Valley, both players discard any monsters in their hands. Now the cool thing is, let's say you go first, you open Necro Valley, and then you play Royal Tribute, but you can play your Gravekeeper's Heretic first, or you can special your Inspector Border first, and then you Royal Tribute them, and then if they have a handful of monsters, then you're just really, really sad. So, Gravekeeper, the Necro Valley Royal Tribute 1-2 punch can really catch your opponent off guard and can really steal some games for you. Next, we run 3 Card of Demise. Card of Demise is a draw tool, basically allowing us to draw more cards. Basically, the whole point of this deck is just to try to filter into Necro Valley and Royal Tribute, as well as things like Instructor Border and draw some negates. So the more draw, the better. So we run 3 Card of Demise. Next, we run 3 Pot of Duality. Again, just another draw card. And then we run 3 Necro Valley Throne. Now, Necro Valley Throne is actually a really nice card that wasn't around when I was playing the game. But no, this has since been added to the Yu-Gi-Oh game in terms of new Gravekeeper support. So I can either add 1 Gravekeeper monster from my deck to my hand, or I can normal summon 1 additional Gravekeeper monster. Normally speaking, this is basically just a tutor for more Gravekeepers. So essentially, Necro Valley Throne becomes yet another 3 copies of Necro Valley, because Necro Valley Throne, Surge, Commandant, Commandant, Surge, Necro Valley. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 copies of Necro Valley that we are playing in our 40 card deck. A quarter of our cards are Necro Valley. So if you draw 5 cards, chances are it's very high for you to be able to draw it. And that's why we run 3 copies. Next, we run 3 Pot of Extravagance, another pot card. If you guys are familiar with Pot of Greed, after Pot of Greed was deemed too powerful and banned, Yu-Gi-Oh has come out with a bunch of different pot cards: Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Duality, etc., etc. So we just run this pot card and allows us to look for more cards. Got the 3 Necro Valleys, obviously, and then we run 1 Hidden Temples of Necro Valley. And this is a bit of a more fringe card, because we can only play it if we both have Necro Valley and a Gravekeeper monster on the field already, in which its effect is neither player can special summon monsters, right? So that basically is the final touch of the lockdown. Necro Valley denies your opponent on activating effects, revolving around moving things in the graveyard and stuff. And then if you roll tribute them, then they maybe lose a couple of monsters immediately on even before their first turn even starts. And then if you draw the absolute nuts, the hidden temples of Necro Valley, will make it so that you have, a Gravekeeper's Heretic, he can't be targeted. And then you have the hidden temples, which means your opponent can't special summon. So if they can't special summon, and then they can't activate effects, then that really puts most decks in quite a bit of a bind here. We only run 1 because it is very clunky if you don't exactly have the setup you want. So it's more of just like if we draw it, then we draw it, and then if you also have the setup, then that's basically just like a game over type of deal. Next we run 2 MSTs. 2 MSTs, Mystical Space Typhoon, just to destroy spells and traps. And then next we have our trap cards. Run 2 Torrential Tributes for when things really go wrong. If you don't go first, or you don't draw the absolute nuts for Necro Valley, Royal Tribute and stuff, then we have Torrential Tribute. Now the cool thing about Torrential Tribute is, like for example, if you set it down the previous turn and then back to your turn, you can play Gravekeeper's Heretic, and then you Torrential Tribute to chain with the Gravekeeper Heretic summon, and wipe all monsters on the field, except Gravekeeper's Heretic isn't affected by other card effects, so he doesn't actually die, so very useful tool there. Otherwise, it's kind of like a floodgate prevention. If your opponent's doing all sorts of things, then you can activate Torrential Tribute and blow everything up. Hopefully they don't have a negate for that. Next, we run 1 copy of Storming Mirror Force. This card is specifically, because I played a bit, I think in the season 1 or something, and I was having a pretty good time, and then I came across some Blue Eyes decks, and Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon really just destroys this deck completely. Nothing in my first iteration can deal with Blue Eyes Chaos Max at all. It's like a 4,000 attack monster, has double piercing damage against defense mode monsters, is not affected by or it can't be destroyed outside of battle or something. So Stormy Mirror Force bounces attack position monsters from my opponent's field back to their hand. It does not target, so Blue Eyes Chaos Max can just be removed that way. And finally, for the rest of our deck, we run a set of the 2 Old Men. We run 3 Solomon Judgment and 3 Solomon Strike. This is just your typical run-of-the-mill, I don't like what you're doing, your card has a lot of text and it's very intimidating, so I'm going to pay half my life points to negate that card. Or Solomon's Strike, where like, oh, you're special summoning quite a number of things, or you're activating this really powerful effect, then you can pay 1500 life points, and if you do, negate the summon or activation and destroy that card. So basically, you know, as someone that played Yu-Gi-Oh! The most recent time I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like, whoa, I don't know, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. There's a lot of new cards, there's a lot of new effects, very intimidating stuff. When in doubt, just Solomon Judgment them, and you know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. For our extra deck, we basically run a bunch of random things. It doesn't really matter what these are, but we do need to have an extra deck because of the Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance does require us to banish up to 3 or 6 cards from our extra deck face down in order to draw cards. So we do need to have some stuff in here. Alright, you see we have a Gravekeeper Supernatural, but we don't actually look to actively, you know, fusion summon into it. And then we also have some, you know, rank 4 Exceeds, and then we also have some, you know, Link monsters. But for the most part, that's not really a thing that's going to be happening in this particular deck. So that's the deck. Let's go over some mulligans real quick. So in Yu-Gi-Oh! First of all, there is a coin flip to decide who goes first or second. And the thing that's different about this with Wise is that if you win the coin flip, you get to choose if you go first or second, whereas in Wise, the winner has to go first. For Gravekeepers though, we always want to go first. Like, we always want to go first. We want to play Necro Valley, we want to play Royal Tribute, and then we want to just win the game before they even get to play the game. And then if they still get to play the game, then we probably lose. So, very simple deck. Very, very simple deck. You don't have to have much knowledge about, you know, the current meta or anything. On your end, it's just Necro Valley, Royal Tribute, or Necro Valley, Inspective Order, and then pass turn, see what they do, and then if they don't scoop, then you probably lose. So let's go over some mulligans. We don't get to actually mulligan cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! So whatever we draw is just whatever we get. This hand has potential. No, we probably go with Terraforming, and then we can pot to see if we can draw into Royal Tribute. We also have a card of Demise, so that we can potentially draw cards. And then we're probably setting Solomon and Mythical Space Typhoon. Let's draw another hand. Again, we start with a pot and see where we go from there. We don't have a Necro Valley, so we're ideally hoping to draw into Necro Valley. Here we're going to pot and then Expected Order, but you see here, this deck is very, very simple. There's no like long chains of things. It's like I play one card, I play like a monster, I play like a couple spells, I set a couple spells, and over to you. That's basically it. And I mean, the deck, you know, very fun, very fun. You basically just have a coin flip simulator. If you go first and you draw the right cards, then you win. And then if you don't go first and you don't draw the right cards, then you lose. So this has really scratched my Yu-Gi-Oh! Itch. You know, I'm very happy that like, you know, my boys Gravekeepers, they can at least take a couple of games here and there, even against, you know, the popular archetypes nowadays. So let me know, guys, know what you think. I'll have gameplay videos for this deck coming up soon. But without, I think that's about it, and I'll see you guys next time. This has been Mike on the Tressa Collectibles channel, and we'll see you guys with more Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel content in the future. Bye.